Christmas is often said to be surrounded by mysticism, with many people around the globe believing in things such as Christmas miracles. The story I'm about to tell you is of one such miracle, the Christmas Truce of 1914. In this video I'm going to be primarily focusing on the British and German side of the story, as they were the main two nations involved in the truce. Other nations did have ceasefires on Christmas Day, but not nearly to the same extent or friendliness than the Brits and Germans had. Contrary to popular belief, the Christmas truce was not something that just happened out of the blue between two sides who had previously held nothing but hate for each other. The fact of the matter is that there had been fraternization between the Brits and Germans for some time before the truce. This fraternization was so persistent that it was not uncommon, and maybe perhaps even common, for two scouts of the opposing sides to simply ignore each other and keep going if they crossed each other's paths. The Brits and Germans got so friendly with each other that there were truces between German and British units that can be dated back to as early as November 1914. One more example of this friendliness is that it was said that there was always a noticeable silence around dinner time along the British and German lines as both sides ate their dinner, which became a sort of unspoken ceasefire until dinner was finished. The friendliness between these two sides only became stronger over time, with one British soldier even reporting that on the 1st of December they received a visit from a German sergeant to see how they were getting on. It is also said that around this time it was a common occurrence for German and British soldiers to shout greetings at each other across the trench lines. However, a lot of the time these conversations didn't stop at mere greetings. The men were known to frequently exchange news as well, which was held by a common language, as many German soldiers had lived in England, particularly London, prior to the war, and were familiar with the language and society of the English. Several British soldiers recorded instances of Germans asking about news from the football leagues, while other conversations could be simple discussions of the weather or even messages they were sending back home to a sweetheart. All this fraternization eventually led to units on both sides singing to taunt or even entertain the enemy. The singing would eventually turn into a more festive activity. In early December, Sir Edward Holles of the Scots Guard wrote that he was planning to organise a convert party for Christmas Day, which would give the enemy every conceivable form of song in harmony, in response to frequent choruses of Deutschland über alle. When Christmas finally came, some 100,000 German and British soldiers laid down their arms and ceased hostilities until the holiday was over. It is said the truce started when the Germans began placing candles on their trenches and Christmas trees, followed by the singing of Christmas carols. Upon hearing this, the British responded by singing carols of their own. The carol singing eventually evolved into the two sides shouting Christmas greetings to each other, and soon after, a few brave men raised their heads above the parapets and stepped into no man's land. Upon seeing this act of trust, more men followed, and before they knew it, hundreds of men were meeting in no man's land, exchanging gifts such as food, tobacco, alcohol, and souvenirs such as buttons and hats, to name a few. The artillery in the region fell silent as the men conversed with each other. The truce also helped both sides bring back recently killed soldiers so they could be identified and buried. Joint services were said to be held, and in most sectors the truce lasted through Christmas night, with it lasting as long as until New Year's Day in others. Incredibly, many accounts of the Christmas truce mention a game of soccer, or football if you're European, we call it soccer in Australia, between the Brits and Germans. This wasn't a one-off thing either, as it appears to have happened in multiple parts of the line, with the Germans winning in some parts and the Brits winning in other parts. But maybe me just telling you what happened doesn't hit home for you, so how about I show you what the actual men involved in this wonderful event wrote about it. Bruce Bairnsfather, who fought throughout the war, wrote, "I wouldn't have missed that unique and weird Christmas day for anything. I spotted a German officer, some sort of lieutenant I should think, and a bit of a collector. I intimated to him that I had taken a fancy to some of his buttons. I brought out my wire clippers and, with a few deft snips, removed a couple of his buttons and put them in my pocket. I then gave him two of mine in exchange. The last I saw was one of my machine gunners, who was a bit of an amateur hairdresser in civil life, cutting the unnaturally long hair of a docile Bock," meaning a German soldier, who was patiently kneeling on the ground whilst the automatic clippers crept up the back of his neck. Another soldier, Henry Williamson, who was only 19 years old at the time, wrote to his mother on Boxing Day, "Dear Mother, I am writing from the trenches. It is 11 o'clock in the morning. Beside me is a coke fire. Opposite me, a dugout with straw in it. The ground is sloppy in the actual trench, but frozen elsewhere. In my mouth is a pipe presented by the Princess Mary. In the pipe is tobacco. Of course, you say. But wait, in the pipe is German tobacco. Ha ha, you say. From a prisoner or found in a captured trench? Oh dear, no. From a German soldier. Yes, a live German soldier from his own trench. Yesterday, the British and Germans met and shook hands in the ground between the trenches and exchanged souvenirs and shook hands. Yes, all day Xmas Day, and as I write, marvellous, isn't it? Yet another soldier, Captain Sir Edward Hulse, reports how English, Scots, Irish, Prussians, Württembergers, etc., all joined in on singing a song together during the truce. I could go on and list countless more incredible first-hand accounts, but in the name of keeping this video short and to the point, I'll be ending it there. So that's the tale of the Christmas truce, a remarkable true story of men who by all logic should have hated each other, coming together in peace in the name of Christmas. I hope you all had a lovely Christmas, as I was fortunate enough to, and with all that being said guys, I hope to see you amazing people in the next one.